Bigger Pockets was like the main thing that I used, right? As far as forums and networking with folks. But um, I had like my circle of friends were not investors. And so I couldn't be like, hey, like, tell me more about this. It was more like, okay, well, I guess I'll just figure it. And then I was like, this is my first time. And I think I had like that fear of like failure and like exposing my failure. And
Yeah.
so I was like, I'm just going to do it on my own. And if it does well, then I'll tell somebody about it. But if it doesn't do well, I'm going to shut the hell up and not say anything.
Welcome to The Breakthrough with Stephen Houston, the show that takes you behind the scenes with successful entrepreneurs, real estate investors, and other movers and shakers in the business world. In each episode, we'll sit down with our guests to explore their personal and professional journeys, including the challenges they faced, the breakthrough moments that propelled them to success, and the strategies and the tactics they used to get there. Get inspired by new ideas and strategies and get to know our guests on a deeper level. Join us for candid conversations, powerful insights, and plenty of breakthrough moments. Please help us grow by subscribing and sharing the podcast, and welcome to the show. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of The Breakthrough with Stephen Houston. Today we have an incredible guest who's a tech guru turned real estate maven, Ashley Cow. Ashley has a fascinating journey from working with giants like Tesla and Waymo to becoming a powerhouse in the real estate investment world. In this episode, we dive into her transition from tech to real estate, her experiences managing properties remotely, and some of the craziest contractor stories you'll ever hear. Plus, we explore her passion for DJing and how it complements her business ventures. You don't want to miss Ashley's insights on leveraging stock options for real estate investments and the pivotal moments that shaped her career. We also get into some real talk about the challenges and rewards of pivoting careers. Tune in for a mix of tech, real estate, and some serious cool DJ stories. Trust me, this is one episode you don't want to skip. All right. We're live.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Nice to see you.
Thanks for joining.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
We were talking about, last time we spoke, and I was kind of blown away that it's been a couple of years. It seems like it was only, a year ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we were at the Bigger Pockets conference. I think I met you walking. We were walking from the convention to go get food with like a group of people.
Yeah.
Is that what I remember? Okay.
That's correct. Yeah. There was like a big group of us. And
I don't even remember how we got together like that, but it was
we're like
we're just all walking together like, hey, where are we going? We're going to get food.
Yeah. Sounds great. That was awesome. And I remember you telling me that you were working on putting together like a content studio. So it looks like it's happening. So it's awesome.
Yeah, I put it together. It's so funny. It's in the Rose Garden area. So I'm right off Park.
Okay. Yeah.
Park and Meridian.
Yeah.
And it's a really old building, but it doesn't really matter. It's a small little room. And initially I was thinking, I'm going to bring the guests in here. But then I was like booking a lot of guests that were out of state or, down in LA. So then I just put it on hold. Like, okay, I'm just going to keep doing them like this on Riverside.
Right.
For the time being. But I think at some point, the only problem with this building and this room that I've learned is soundproofing.
Okay.
Because it's basically two rooms, like a size of a bedroom. So we have two of them. We go through one door and then there's another door. But the room that I'm in, there's a door that goes out to the hallway. And then if sometimes the people here are moving in or they're showing some of the other units, you can hear it. Like I need to really soundproof it. I've been pretty good at, dodging the bullet, so to speak, knock on wood.
Yeah.
Not having too many crazy things, but the windows are single pane. So sometimes I can hear somebody mowing their lawn. I'm like, okay, whatever. But, and it's funny. The one thing I've learned about this particular media room, is the next one I would do is making it like much more dual purpose. Okay. Meaning be able to like change up the looks as much as possible so that you can shoot different content and not get I don't know, I just get bored. Like, okay, I'm tired of what
The
this looks
backdrop
like.
or
I want to
whatever.
change this out,
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's just the creative side of me, just, always wanting to make it look different and cool. So what's on the, you got Stevie Wonder.
Oh, yeah, you're good. I didn't know you could recognize that from here.
Well, it's funny right now on Riverside. Um, Sometimes the video quality, it's coming out good when it records and downloads, but like what I see of you, it's a little bit kind of fuzzy.
Okay.
But I do know the top right is Stevie Wonder.
Yes. We got Stevie
Let me see.
Wonder. We got a lot of actually female artists on here. So Stevie Wonder's the only guy. Oh, I guess the middle right here, you can't tell what it is, but it's the Carpenters. So that's like ultra throwback. So that's my mom's favorite group, I guess. And so there's Aaliyah, TLC, her, and SZA. So I try to change those out once in a while, and same thing with you, change the background a little bit. So but it's funny because like people do notice Stevie Wonder the most because he's probably the most recognizable on there. So
it's the cover.
Yeah.
It's that cover. It's like an iconic cover. Interesting enough, the Carpenters. You're gonna like this story because this is up your alleyway.
Yeah.
So back in the 90s, I got booked to DJ in Cabo for MTV.
Awesome. Okay.
And so me and my buddy flew out there, and they put us up in this really cool villa. And I was sleeping in this circular room that was like domed. And I started sleeping in there, and I had these like wild dreams of this lady.
Okay.
And she was really thin and, just kind of like disheveled. And I like kind of like had out-of-body experiences, kind of flew out the window. And I guess I started screaming in the middle of the night.
Okay.
Woke up the people that were staying there. And then there's a couple of people that like managed the property as well, that were staying on location. And I told them, like, yeah, it was just like really thin woman, long hair. And they like look at each other and they're like, yeah, this was Karen Carpenter's old house.
Whoa.
The room you're sleeping in is the room that they would record music.
That is
from time to time.
Crazy. I just got chills. That's crazy.
Crazy. It's crazy. And then the following day, we go to the beach. I think it was the office. I can't remember, but I'm pretty sure it was somewhere by the office, if you've ever been to Cabo. And they interviewed me on this radio station. And so I go on this radio station, and I said something to reference that I liked Latinos.
Okay.
Like, and like, I'm like, yeah, I like Latino women. And, I think they're really beautiful. And the guy like looks and he's like, I think you could have a lot of people at the show. And so we pulled up to go to the show that night. And it was just girl going down the street, and they're like packed trying to get into this club. It was the most insane night. It's like crazy. But yeah, awesome. That's one of my funny DJ stories back in the 90s. But I know that you DJ.
Yes, I do for fun.
Great.
It's a nice creative outlet for me.
Yeah.
Outside of just all the business and real estate stuff.
Yeah.
So it's a nice release. So I try to pick up gigs here and there. I actually didn't know you DJ, so we should play sometime.
Yeah. I haven't DJed, honestly, I haven't DJed since 2005 in San Jose. I mean, so yeah, I got a pretty checkered past back in the rave days and DJing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I can leave it at that. You know what was going down. I grew up in the 90s. I went to raves, and so I had to get my act together in 2005. So I haven't pulled out my decks since then, but it is calling me back into, setting up my equipment again and buying all new equipment, because everything has changed now.
Yeah.
Everything's digital. Are you all digital, or are you still using vinyl?
I have vinyl. I have the turntables, like the old school turntables and all that stuff. And then I also do have like a controller, so more digital stuff. So the digital stuff is more portable. these turntables are super heavy and clunky and
Yeah.
all that stuff. So,
Are they 1200s?
hmm yeah,
Yeah. The
you gotta have them. They're
You
like
got to have them, man.
it's a part of history, you know. So,
It is. The next DJ booth I build, they'll have all, probably all the CDJs, and they'll probably have all the, the techie stuff that's going on. But I have 3 turntables and a Yuri mixer in my storage,
nice. That's
and
awesome.
enough records to basically like fill a whole room.
That's
So
amazing.
I'm gonna have all the turntables still, and I'll just have to build the whole room out in our next house. I think that's what the direction's going. It's already going that way. It's slowly, moving towards that, because like you said, it's such a great outlet.
Mhm.
Um, it's just a good, positive thing to do.
Yeah,
You know,
definitely.
how did you get into it? I'm curious about that.
Um, Speaking of like rave days, I went to like a show. Well, I went to I went to a lot of like shows and stuff. And then the show that really just like captivated me and I was so impressed by how well the DJ just like made the audience feel and all that stuff was this is like back in like probably like 2011, 2012 when Zed was coming out on,
Yeah.
he's becoming a little bit more popular. And I went to a show and it just blew my mind. I was like, this little guy up on stage is like making the crowd feel some type of way. And I left that show just like feeling energized and it just felt like an amazing experience. And so I was like, I'm gonna like, what is DJing, right? So that kind of made me think about it a little bit more. And then I had a friend who was a DJ. And so like we would do session. He'd come over and bring his stuff and he'd teach me some things and so I started just kind of like dabbling in it and I bought like a super basic controller. Um, but it kind of fell off because I got into like real estate and stuff. And so that like took a lot of my time. Um, and then I started getting back into it probably like 2019. And then right when the pandemic hit, I was like, oh, I'm jumping in like super
Yeah.
deep. And then that's when
Yeah.
and
Cool.
that's when I got like all this equipment. So I got like turntables, I got a mixer just because I had another friend who's a DJ and she was like, you should learn on turntables because if you learn on turntables, you can pretty much learn on any system because this is like
Right.
the old school way, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so the YouTube University, all of the pandemic was me watching tons of YouTubes. A lot of people were on Twitch doing shows and stuff like that. And so it's just so
Mm-hmm.
super inspiring.
Yeah.
Um, and so I just dove deep into it. And then once things started opening back up, I got involved with an all women's DJ group.
Oh,
So
cool.
so it's like a collective of women, providing a safe space for women to just grow in the primarily male dominated industry. Um, and Started just playing with them and picking up gigs through them and stuff. So it's been a super fun just outlet and an opportunity to experiment with new music and then also experience new venues, new people, and all that stuff. So it's been fun.
Yeah, I think that's so great. Cool. I got like goosebumps when you're talking like that. I love hearing people talk about that because I think I loved hearing people's stories on how they got into DJing and how they got inspired to
hmm
actually take the leap and, you know, go the distance to, collect music and learn how to cue records and how to set a vibe. I mean, that's the thing about DJing is you could give 5 DJs 5 records
Yeah.
and they're all going to set a different vibe.
Oh, for
And
sure.
that's the beauty of it being a DJ and being creative is just because somebody has the same records, they're going to set a whole different vibe. They're going to interpret it differently.
Yeah.
That's what's been so cool about, I'm glued to DJs
Yeah.
on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Like I work out, I do all these big endurance events on my bike, like 8-hour races, and I'll listen to like John Digweed and Sasha for 8 hours straight.
Amazing.
You know what I mean? Just
Yeah.
everyone's like, what do you listen to? And I'm like, John Digweed and Sasha, like, really? Why? I'm like, well, because they're a continuous mix, the
Yeah.
beat is perfect for
For the
running or
rhythm. Yeah.
cycling.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
like,
That's awesome. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
yeah, that's awesome. So I know she got a pretty extensive background in tech. I knew about Waymo. I think you had told me about Waymo when we were walking that day.
Yeah.
For some reason I knew about that, but I didn't know you were at Tesla too.
Yes. So it's funny. I probably changed careers, I guess 4 times now, right? And so I started off when I went to college, I was like, okay, what am I gonna do? And so I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I guess I'll take it back to like my childhood when I was young. My first language was Vietnamese, so I didn't speak English first, and so I learned Vietnamese as a child, and then I went to American school, and at that time, there wasn't English as a second language classes to teach you how to speak English and all that stuff. So my mom was like, "You're going to American school because that's what you do here," and and then so she threw me into school, and I had it was like me being put on Mars and meeting aliens, right? Because I did not speak English and I had no
Yeah,
idea
it's
what people were saying. And so I was super shy. Like my first year in American school, I didn't speak at all. I was just a wallflower trying to absorb kind of what was going on and trying to understand this language. Um, and yeah, and so growing up as a kid, I was super shy and shy to the point where like, I would miss out on opportunities or I wouldn't speak up in certain situations. And so that really like bothered me because I hated that I was so shy. I was like, how do I get over this like shyness? Because in my head, I'm like, I want to talk, but like
yeah.
externally, I'm like, shit, I'm scared. I'm not gonna say anything. Um, and so as I kind of started growing up, obviously, I eventually started talking and I learned English. And the really cool thing is, throughout even my first year in American school, I did, I had friends. So I had friends who like befriended me and like included me in play, even though I had not spoken a word to them. And so
Oh wow.
it was like an amazing experience because I was like, holy shit, like these people are still accepting of me, even though I was different from them. Um, so anyway, so yeah, I kind of, grew up super shy and I was like, okay, how do I like overcome this shyness? And so I I think at a younger age I saw that like marketing and sales was like people who were not me, where like they're super talkative. They can go and like talk to anyone and build a relationship with anyone and do all that. So I was like, I want to learn how they do that. And so,
Hmm.
um, when I was, you know, in school, that's kind of what I was thinking about. Like, okay, maybe I want to do marketing because that will help train me how to get outside of my comfort zone, essentially. And so I went to college studying marketing, and then after I graduated, I picked up a couple of marketing gigs, right? So I worked for a toy company, I worked for an app development company, um, and I think that's kind of was my first plug into, like, technology. It was working for this app company because that's when iPhones just started coming out, and so I'm probably aging myself a little bit. And so, like, iPhones started coming out, and then these apps came out on these phones, and so I was like, "Well, this is super cool." Like, before we had our Razors and our flip phones that didn't do much.
Razor.
Um, and so, like so that now you have this, like, touch screen, and you can do all this crazy stuff with your phone. Um, and so that's I was like, "Okay, I'm fascinated by technology." And, of course, I live in the Bay Area, and so that's Silicon Valley. Technology is, like, the epicenter over here. And so, um, I was very interested in that, but I realized that doing marketing for an app development company was not what I wanted to do because I'm pretty much convincing you to buy, like, a $5 app that you don't use after a month. And so I just
Hmm.
felt it was,
Interesting.
like, not very fulfilling for me, on a personal level. And so I started looking for other jobs, and, I, was in an interview for another marketing job, and the recruiter that I was talking with was like, "Hey, have you ever thought about becoming a recruiter?" And I was like, "What is that?" I have no idea what that was. And they're like, well, it's kind of like marketing, but you're marketing people and you're marketing jobs. And so you're helping people find jobs. And I'm like, oh, that sounds way better than convincing you to buy a $5 app. No offense to those people who do that, but like it wasn't for me. And so I started exploring recruiting, and then I eventually got into tech recruiting, so technical recruiting. And so that was, me hiring or sourcing and finding engineers to come work at these great companies. And so I worked for an agency first, and I was recruiting for Apple. And so like,
Oh, cool.
yeah, so
Really cool.
yeah, so I started, that was like my first like tech like company, and I would go on site at Apple and like meet with my candidates and all that stuff. And I was like, this is so freaking cool. Like I'm working essentially, I guess, for Apple. Um, and so I was there for a couple of years, and then eventually Tesla reached out to me. And so they said, hey, we're looking for recruiters. Are you interested?
What year was that?
This was, oh man, 2000, 2015, 2016, I think it was. So this is before Model 3. And
Yeah.
so, um, and I knew Tesla was still kind of in its like startup phase, right? So people were
Right.
kind of like, what is this company? And then living in the Bay Area,
We saw it
we
kind of
saw it.
unfolding.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember like my neck broke the first time I saw a Model S, because I was like, what car is that? It looks so dope. And
Yeah.
so that was like my first like, okay, that's a Tesla. And then, fast forward a year or whatever to later, Tesla calls and they say, hey, we're looking for recruiters. And I was like, I need to go to this company because this is like super cool technology. It's new, right? Electric cars were not that popular, or if they were popular, they weren't sexy like Tesla.
Yeah. That's
Um,
totally true.
and then once I kind of started understanding what the company does and like their kind of whole vertical integration, right? So they have their chargers, they have their power
Yeah.
wall for their home, they have solar, all that stuff. I was like, this is amazing. Like, why didn't somebody think about this, earlier? And so I was at Tesla for about 4 years, recruiting engineers who did the speakers for the car, or like the infotainment system, or the body of the vehicle. So different types of mechanical and electrical engineers. And I had a lot of fun there, but the work was a lot.
It was insane.
It was nuts.
It's insane.
Yeah, and I'm sure people hear it all the
You
time.
don't
It's
need to
like,
you don't need to sugarcoat
yeah,
it.
it was nuts. And so lots of pressure, you're working definitely over 40, 50 hours a week. And, but at the time I was young and I was like excited about the company. And
Yeah.
like, there is something about that Tesla effect where it's like you drink the Kool-Aid and you're like, I'm so down for this company because it's doing such a big mission. And
I was just
so,
gonna say that. I was just gonna say
yeah,
everybody's on a mission, and
yeah,
for a company with that many verticals and things going on, yeah, they really do have to have everybody on a mission,
yeah.
so to speak,
It
right?
was, it was
How was
mission.
the interview process? Was
Um,
that insane, or was it pretty tame, or how did that all go? And like, how many interviews did you end up having?
I think I went through, I think I met 4 or 5 people. And so it was
4 or 5 rounds?
4 or 5 rounds.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
it, after, a couple phone interviews and stuff like that. And so it was pretty extensive, I would say. And it was me meeting not only other recruiters, but also engineers. So the potential engineering managers that I would be working with. So it was really, I mean, it was challenging. But it was also very cool because I had never been in a Tesla since then. And so my manager at the time was like, oh, we're going for a ride then. So he like books a Model S and takes me on a test drive and shows me the ludicrous mode at the time, I think it was. And so
Oh,
like
cool.
0 to 60 in like what, 2 point something seconds or whatever it was. And it blew my mind. It was like, this is an amazing.
Where were you? Were you up in Fremont,
I was in
or
Palo
were you in
Alto.
Palo Alto?
Palo Alto. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. So like I like lost my shit when he like
Oh
hit
yeah,
that ludicrous mode or
yeah.
insane mode.
You're like,
And
what?
I was like, I need to work for this company. And so that's what sold me. It was just seeing the car in action and stuff. So
And then, so you were there for how long? And when was the last year you worked there?
so I was there for 4 years. Man, I don't remember my dates anymore. So I was there for 4 years. And then, so I left in 20, the end of like 2020, beginning of 2020. So yeah, the beginning of 2020, I came over to Waymo. And the reason I went over to Waymo was a couple of things. I really liked the technology that Waymo is doing too. And I think it was different, right? So Tesla is like an electric vehicle that has some self-driving features, which is really great technology. But Waymo was primarily focused on the self-driving technology. So not
Right.
necessarily electric cars or anything like that. And so I wanted to learn more about that because I was in autopilot or supporting autopilot for some time when I was at Tesla. And I was fascinated by that. And so I was like, I want to learn more about that stuff. And then Waymo being part of Google or a subsidiary of Alphabet family, um, I knew that there was like work life balance kind of thing. And so
Yeah.
going from
Yes.
Tesla, working, long hours, I wanted to kind of experience a different culture. So that was a like a 180 for me of like how much different the culture was and how much resources there were because Tesla was still in the startup, Model 3
Right.
just launched right when I left, just I think it was. And so yeah, so it
Let's
was a big
grind it
change.
out, people. We're figuring this out as we go. Let's make things and break things.
Yep, yep.
We don't
And
got time for anything else. Let's do this.
yep. Meanwhile, Waymo was like, hey, you get a free massage. Thanks for joining
Yeah.
me.
Yes. You need your dry cleaning done.
Yeah.
How many meals do you need? Are you gluten free? We got that for you too.
Yeah. Or like, oh, free food? I never heard of that before.
Well, they want to take care of you. They want you to work too. And
Yeah.
they've already figured out the work life. But I'd imagine you've hopefully kept some of your Tesla stock. I would imagine you got a chunk of
Yes.
that. Or yes,
Yes.
good.
So I kept majority of it, I would say.
Good for you.
And the thing was, so like I mentioned real estate earlier. So through all of this, I was investing in real estate on the side, right? And so I was working my W-2 job, but then I knew that I learned about passive income and I was like, oh, that sounds like a good thing to do in the meantime. And so having stock and, a well-paying salary, I knew that I wanted to invest it to something that will bring me returns. And luckily enough, I had talked to a friend early on where I was telling him, I was like, oh, yeah, I have all this stock, but I don't want to sell it because I have to pay for the capital gains.
Oh, I know what you're going to say. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah. All right.
um, so that unlocked something for me because I was like, holy crap, like, um, why don't a lot of people know about this? And so he suggested that I get a securities backed line of credit. And I was like,
Yep.
I have no idea what that is. And
Bingo.
then I had a HELOC before, right? And so I used the
Yeah.
HELOC to buy real estate. But the securities backed line of credit I never heard of. And so I looked into that and it's the same thing, right? It's like your collateral is your
It's your
securities, your
stock.
stock. And so
Yeah.
um, and the approval, like there's no credit check. It doesn't show up on your credit report. And so
No,
I was
it's
like,
easy.
this is amazing. And so I leveraged that to buy properties and, and that's kind of how I got started in real estate while I was in my tech job. So, yeah.
That's so funny. That's kind of my story as well. I did an equity line
Mm-hmm.
and then levered my stocks too. I
Yeah,
did
that's
both.
amazing. I'm like,
Yeah.
why are the people like you hear about HELOC all the time,
Yeah.
right? But I feel like S blocks or, things like that are not really talked about that often. So I'm glad that you
One
knew
of my
about it.
real estate clients is the one that turned me on it. He's like, look, I don't sell my stock. I borrow against it.
Yeah.
And it's like over time, certain people put something in your ear
Yeah.
and it like can change your life in
Yeah.
a lot of ways. You know what I mean? Or put you in a new direction.
Yeah.
It's interesting. And when he said that to me, and he's like, I don't want to pay taxes, so I borrow against it. I was like, well, I got stock.
Yeah.
I want to go buy real estate. So I did the same thing.
That's
I
amazing.
was like, now this is great.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
How did you juggle? Because I get this question asked a lot. Because I work with a lot of people that work in tech that want to be investors, and they either have vested stock they want to put into real estate, but they don't really understand the ins and outs of the day to day, because there's a lot to it. I think more than most people understand until they're really actively in it, and they start going, "Oh gosh, this is a lot of work if you don't have systems and teams and people to help you." How did you manage that in the very beginning? Like, how did you put together those first steps and start working? Did you have partners? How did you do all that?
So I actually started doing it solo because um at the time, I mean, Bigger Pockets was like the main thing that I used, right? As far as forums and networking with folks. But um I had like my circle of friends were not investors. And so I couldn't be like, hey, like, tell me more about this. It was more like, okay, well, I guess I'll just figure it. And then I was like, this is my first time. And I think I had like that fear of like failure and like exposing my failure. And
Yeah.
so I was like, I'm just going to do it on my own. And if it does well, then I'll tell somebody about it. But if it doesn't do well, I'm going to shut the hell up and not say anything. And so, and so that was like my first, like, okay, and I started there, but then I started to realize that it is like real estate investing, and a lot of businesses are a relationship type of sport, right?
Absolutely.
And so me doing it alone was very lonely and like not fun, because I was like, oh my God, like I'm in my own head and I'm
Right.
trying to figure it out. And so,
Can't bounce anything off anybody, and you just kind of,
yeah,
your brain is either working for or against you.
yeah, yeah. And so I leaned on the Bigger Pockets forum, because then at least for me, maybe, I'm still shy here and there, right? And so like, for me, the forums was an easy way for me to, I guess, expose myself,
Yeah.
and then feel more comfortable, after being more involved in the forums and stuff. So I would ask questions, and if I knew something, then I would answer those questions. And so that was like my like segue into just like networking and learning how to connect with other people who were doing the same thing as me. Um, and then
Were
uh,
you reaching out to people at that point too? Like, were you DMing people
I
and getting on the
was,
phone? Okay.
yeah, yeah. So that
And
was
were they more local, or were you talking to people all throughout the United States?
all throughout the United States. And I mean, I still in touch with a good amount of them to this day. And like
That's cool.
my first Bigger Pockets friend, I think he lives in Washington. And so,
Oh, really?
yeah. And so I
Okay.
think I saw him on the forums. He's like, I'm new, just trying to learn. And I was like, oh, that's me. That's me. Right. And so I was like, I'm going to hit him up because we're on the same level. Right. And so it was, if it weren't for Bigger Pockets, I don't think it would have been as easy for me to continue to move on. And so, yeah.
Yeah, that's a big, I think Bigger Pockets. I think Bigger Pockets and just social media,
Hmm.
having YouTube and all these different places to go to either jump into a community and learn, even if it's just you're quiet in the background, you can definitely plug yourself in, even if you're shy or new, and sit back and start to go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And you couldn't do that. It was different. Like, I wanted to get into real estate back in like 2004.
Hmm.
And I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad,
Yeah.
On a trip, I was in Maui and read the book, and I'm like, yeah, I want to get into real estate. And it was weird. I went to like a conference in San Francisco. I don't even remember who it was, but I just remember it was somebody on stage talking about how to flip a house, you know, with all this rah. And then everybody just walks out out into the hall, and he has like a CD, and you buy this, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you buy the CD and that's it. You
That's
walk
it.
away, and there's no community. Nobody you can kind of, lean into. And the infrastructure was different then.
Yeah.
People, all the information was kept to oneself, and it wasn't spread through, it wasn't given out freely. Let's just say that. It was
Yeah.
just a different time period. So
Yeah.
yeah, I totally understand what you're saying, because when I got into it, I broke my wrist, snowboarding, and I just was sitting at home and, went down the rabbit hole, got onto YouTube, and I was like, people are investing out of state, and like going through all the scenarios. I'm like, why am I trying to save all this money to, buy an investment property in California where I need, $500,000 and all the,
Yeah.
the friction to it all. I'm like, I want to, and so I was like, let's go outstate, So I went to a Bigger Pockets conference, bought properties at the conference, like literally,
Amazing.
did all this creative, was like, I'm going to buy in Detroit and I'm going to fly to Kansas City. And yeah, we'll see how this works.
Yeah.
It's just funny, right? And I think Bigger Pockets allows people to really, carve their own path at their own timeline. I think it's just been a great thing all around. How many conferences have you been to?
Ooh. I try to go to at least, I would say I try to go to at least 2 or 3 out of the year.
Okay.
It's probably more before, but now I try to do more meetups, like local stuff. And so I try to get out there and meet other people in the area. Because there's a lot of people who are doing the same thing as me. They're investing out of state or in apartments and all this stuff. Yeah. So it's easier.
Did you start your own meetup, or did you work with somebody else to do it? Were you doing a meetup?
Yeah.
Either you or somebody else
together.
together?
My business partner and we have a monthly meetup in Milpitas. So it's the second Wednesday of every month. And it's just super casual.
Okay.
It's like from 5 to 7. You come in, grab a beer, talk shop, right? And so
Yeah. That's cool.
and that's literally what I did, through Bigger Pockets, but now you can do it in person. And so it was
Right.
so I wanted to kind of like be able to provide that for other people because that's what helped get me started. And so so we do that, and then we do like a quarterly one where we do a little bit more formatted, and we have like an agenda, and we have guest speakers and stuff. So it's all real estate related.
What year was it when you bought your first investment property?
2018 was my first investment property.
And what was it?
It was a duplex in Columbus, Ohio. It was, so at the time that was when Brandon Turner was all about Burr, talking about Burr, and so I was like, I want to do that. I was like, I want to recycle my money. And so I was like, I'm gonna find a Burr. And so I made it a point to try to make an offer once a week. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna analyze as many properties as I can and then make an offer once a week. And I did that for like, I don't know, 4 months or something like that, and nothing hit. And so I was like, shit, okay, I'm just gonna keep going because consistency, right? And so and then I got feedback from one seller, and they said, oh, I accepted another offer, but I have a portfolio of 10 properties that I'm looking to offload that are exactly the same as what you were looking at. And so he's like, I'm going to send you the list. Let me know which one you're interested in. And I was like, crazy. I was like, okay, this is awesome. And so like,
this is in my lap. This just fell in my lap.
I know.
I went from not being able to do anything to here's a portfolio. Let me see if I can let me underwrite this scenario.
Right. And so this is like my first property. So I ended up, in hindsight, always in hindsight, it's like I should have bought all 10 because it was all in the same neighborhood,
wow,
in the same block, pretty much.
Oh,
and
that's
so
crazy.
I know, and so I was so mad. Crazy. And so I bought one out of this freaking 10.
Yeah.
And I burred it, it was like I probably left like 12,000 in the deal. So it was like almost a perfect burr. But after I'd done that, and I'm like, oh my God, it works. I was like, I should have done that for all 10. And then I would have been like smooth sailing now. And so like, but yeah, so that was my first deal. It was a burr, it was a duplex. It took a while for the rehab because, so I got in 2018, and it took a while to get the tenants out, to finish their leases and such. And then eventually once I got their leases completed, I wanted to renovate the units. And so that's happened like end of 2019, and then the pandemic hit. And so I was like, oh crap, like I can't renovate this unit right now because nobody's working. And so it took a little bit of time, but then I was able to get the refinance, pull the money back out, and pay back my S block.
Okay. What did you learn about that deal? And as far as, I think a good topic would be timelines. And, it's something that I talk about a lot about timelines, like time is money
Mm-hmm.
and investing and rehabbing and all that. And I talk about it all the time and it still bites me in the ass.
Oh yeah.
I'm going through it right now on a property in Kansas City. We had a timeline of 2.5 months. We're 6 months in still,
That's happened for
yeah.
me
And,
many times.
and it's like, and I remember my contract, like I get done 2.5 months. I'm like, God, this is a big project. It's, it's 2 kitchens. It's 3.5 bathrooms, it's full renovation. Like, I don't know how he's going to do this, but, he's saying, I'm like, okay, but, here we are. Thank God he wasn't. He's a budget friendly contractor.
Mm-hmm.
But he's probably going to cost me, $9,000 on top of that just for carrying costs, just
Right.
holding it right now. But, it is what it is. I try to, I think every deal I try to get better. It's one of those things. There's some things that just get out of your control.
Yeah.
Even if you have a great team. Have you gone through where you've had like an amazing contractor and you're like, oh, this is great. I don't have to micromanage you anymore. And all of a sudden the wheels come off and they're gone and something crazy goes on and you're like, oh man, that's it. And now I'm sideways on this rehab. Have you gone through that?
I've gone through, so the first contract that I had for this duplex, it's my first time, right? And so I was like, okay, I think I vetted them properly, right? This is what bigger
Oh
pockets
gosh.
forums told me to do. And so I think the challenge is, and that's what people fear, is like managing something from a distance. And so
Right.
So the contractor would say like, okay, these are the different milestones that we're gonna hit. This was completed this week. And I'm like, oh, can you send me pictures, all that stuff. So I thought I was doing everything correctly. Um, and then somebody suggested to me like, oh, you should have like a person outside of the contractor to go and do like a double check, right? Walk through the property and
Yes.
all that stuff. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do that. So I have a friend who I met through like Bigger Pockets saying, okay, I'll run out there and do it for you. And of course I compensated them for their time. And so they went out and they're like, nothing's done. And I was like, well, it's they sent me.
Wait.
I was like, they sent
The photos are from what house? It's like some. It's like photoshopped.
It's like Google Photos. Like, okay, I'm gonna pull a photo of a finished sink or whatever.
Really, that's crazy.
I had no. So I was like, oh my god, nothing's done. And so it was a lot of just like this, like, hey, I had somebody walk the property yesterday. They reported that this wasn't done and all that stuff. And so it was a lot of back and forth with them. And then eventually halfway through, I was like, you know what? I'm going to just kind of cut my losses now. And then I ended up just ending the relationship with that contractor. And then I pieced out everything. And so I was like, okay, because it was a cosmetic rehab. So they did like countertops, they did flooring, they did paint and all that stuff. And so my approach for the next time was I'm going to just try to find one contractor to do one thing and then see how they do there. And then if they can, if it goes well, then I'll expand the scope for them. Right.
Okay.
And so that was kind of like my way to like not feel like I have to have them do everything and trial them out before I get the larger commitment. And so that actually worked out really well because I had that's when I found like my dream contractor, and he was like amazing and super responsive and all that. And so he came in and I think he did like my flooring first and was very like professional and everything about it. And then eventually he ended up doing my whole entire unit. So
How'd you find him?
It was through Thumbtack actually. So I just did a search through Thumbtack, and I talked to a lot of contractors though through these, Craigslist or whatever, Facebook, all that stuff. And I would say like 50% or maybe even more than that, like were not responsive. And so that was a challenge, but so again, time, right? So I was like holding costs and all that stuff.
Yes. Adds up.
It adds up. But I knew that I needed to work out the system now, and use this property as a way to build out that system.
Right.
Because if I just kind of like jumped into another contractor and expect them to do the whole project and then shoot myself in the foot again, then no point. So, yeah.
It's a big thing. Contractors could just, like, I feel like a broken record when I talk about contractors, but I try to make it very clear that they can make or break you.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, like we learned the hard way, and we scaled so quick during COVID. And, you know, I think contractors were just spread too thin.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the good ones,
Mm-hmm.
even the good ones were, you know, having problems. They would take on too many projects. And, you know, I had one contractor working on 3 houses and had a very similar story about, you know, taking photos of things.
Yeah.
But they were literally taking material like, oh, here, it's done, and then pulling it out and like taking it over to the other property to like kind of show that one was done. It was absolutely insane. And then finally we got smart at getting people on the ground to, you know, walk the property and give us, you know, feedback. Even with like hard money, before you get the draw, they'll send an inspector out. Right. And you would think that they're going to be one that's going to be eyes on the ground that understands, but we got burned with just that too. Like they would go, oh yeah, they did the painting, they put the windows in. No, the windows never got done. This wasn't done correctly. Like we even got burned by the lender's, you know, inspector. So we've had to even put more layers in there over time. Like now I just hire somebody who's either a handyman, somebody that knows what to go look for.
Yeah.
And I make them just dissect the whole house.
Yeah.
Top to bottom, because that's probably the only drawback of investing out of state is sometimes you just would love to just go by.
Yeah.
See it in person, because even photos are tricky too. Like photos, they can get you.
You never know. And with AI these days, you never know.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I remember one guy took photos of the kitchen and I'm like, oh, the kitchen's done. The cabinets are in, it's painted, you know, you could see the counters in. And then the guy goes by and goes, I don't know if you know this, but your countertop is in 4 different pieces that they kind of put together. I'm like,
it's like
what?
He's like, scrap pieces.
Yes. Like, oh, we broke it. Just put it together. Add some grout. We'll be fine. It's so insane. So tell me a little bit about what you're doing now in your new company. And then like where, I know that a lot of things have gone on since that first deal. Where are you at right now? What do you like working? What's inspiring you? What's motivating you? And then what are you doing as far as you're working in lending now?
Yeah.
So you switched altogether. So you got out of tech.
Move. Yeah.
So what made you pivot? Like were you comfortable where you were, like on cash flow, or like tell me that pivot moment where you're like, okay, I'm getting out of tech, I'm going into commercial lending.
So I was at Waymo and I got laid off. And so I was like, holy crap. Like, so, okay, I guess before that, while I was at Tesla and I was at Waymo, I knew that I wanted to make a pivot outside of tech because I just didn't want to do the 9 to 5 anymore. And so I wanted to kind of build my own businesses and just kind of have a little bit more control of my own schedule. And so I was like, okay, well, I have a portfolio of properties. I have, you know, long-term rentals, mid-term rentals, short-term rentals that I was building throughout the years. And so, and then I had reserves, right? So I saved up money because I knew that once I made a pivot, it was probably going to take me some time to get ramped up and make that change.
Smart.
So that was like preparation ever since, because same thing, when I got into real estate investing, that's when I knew, like I read Rich Dad Poor Dad and I was like, okay, I need to like, while I'm earning the salary, I need to build another nest egg or a few other nest eggs in the meantime, in the background. And so I was planning to leave, but I didn't plan to leave that soon. And so it was the beginning of last year, 2023. You know, it was January of 2023. I got the notice that, you know, my role has been eliminated. And so, I was like, and I got like a severance package and stuff. So I was like, oh shit, I just got paid to leave. This is amazing. And so it was like kind of like a blessing in disguise where I knew I wanted to leave already, and now I got paid to leave. And
pushing you in a new direction. Here you go. We're gonna give you the severance and let you
figure it
carve
out.
your new path.
Yeah. So At first I was like in shock. I was like, oh my gosh, I never got laid off before. But then I quickly started to realize, okay, this is what I've been working towards, building this portfolio of properties and reserves and all that stuff. Um, and so I was like, hey, I'm just gonna like dive into real estate full time, stabilize my portfolio, work on my portfolio, and then continue to go to conferences and network. And so during that time, I was involved in a multifamily or apartment syndication. So I was we closed on like 110 or 111 units in Dallas in December of 2022. And so I was already kind of on the pathway of like trying to scale my experience in real estate by moving into multifamily and apartments and things like that. And so uh and then I got laid off in January. And then I was like, and then I went to a multifamily conference in February. And so at that conference, I bumped into one of my mentors, who's the owner of the company I work for right now. And he heard that, Tech was laying off. And so he's like, I heard Tech's laying off. Like, are you good? And I was like, no, I just got laid off last month. So I'm just trying to figure out what I'm going to do. And so he's been my mentor for the past couple of years. And so he's like, we should talk more. And so he was the one that would pretty much convince me to get into lending because it was very similar to what I was doing in the tech world. So I was talking to engineers or clients, right? And trying to figure out like what do they need? And then I go find that solution for them. Right.
Yeah,
So
it's true.
whether it be a job or whatever it is. And so for what I do on the lending side, the same thing. I talk to clients like, okay, I'm trying to buy this commercial property and I'm trying to get this type of financing or I want this type of leverage or whatever it is. What can you do for me? And so I go source that for them. Um, and so I was like, oh, this is super transferable skills. And then it's just I had to learn some of the technical things, but it's the same thing on the tech side where I had to learn the language of engineers. And so
Right.
now learning the language of financing and banking and all that stuff, which, I had some experience with on the investor side. Um, and so I was like, this feels right. And so I just, we talked for a couple months and I wanted to make sure that was the right move for me. And I wanted to learn about the company and all that stuff. And eventually decided to join them. And so I joined the Old Capital Lending as a company. And so I joined them last year. And it's been just an amazing experience so far.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. And it's cool. It's a pivot, there's a moment of fear,
Yeah.
you're getting out of your comfort zone of being in tech and the roles that you had, and you're going in a new path. It's a lot of fear, but it's also really exciting too.
Yeah.
And you mentioned something that's really a big point. It felt right, you said,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
that says a lot, kind of like, okay, this is going to be interesting to learn and it's going to be scary, but I'm up for the challenge.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. Where are they based out of?
Dallas. So started
They're
in
in
Dallas.
Dallas.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we are nationwide and I sit out here in the Bay Area, so I'm kind of remote. But a lot of my clients are actually out here in the Bay Area because they don't want to buy here. They want to buy in Dallas or, other markets. So it works out.
Do you guys service most markets or what states are you in?
I would say majority of the markets. So we have a
Okay.
pretty wide network of investors and lenders. So, I have right now I have projects that I'm helping clients with in like Oklahoma, Texas, Washington, New Mexico. So been
Cool.
all over.
Washington, what do you got going on there? What are they doing?
It's a triple net
Mm.
shopping mall thing. And so that one's kind of interesting because it's a little bit older. And it looks like um, the property itself needs a lot of work. So we'll see what's gonna happen with that one. So
Where do you said you're from the Bay Area. Where do you live?
I'm in Santa Clara.
You're in Santa Clara?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm right down the street from
Yeah.
you.
Like
That's crazy.
I know the Rose Garden or that area very well. So they have some good food over there.
Oh yeah. What else you been up to besides
Um,
work and DJing? Like, do you have anything else you've been doing?
um, so work and DJing, and then it's winter right now, I think, right? Is it still winter?
Isn't
Almost.
our winter? Is it just me, or are we having these like different kinds of events,
Weather thingy.
weather events.
Yeah.
It's like it was like sunny yesterday. It was like sunny and then like pouring rain, like it's like never had before, just like pouring on me. I'm like, what is,
It's
we
like,
just don't have this. It's
yeah,
so
it's not
crazy.
consistent. But
We're Californians, right? You know how we are. We're sensitive to weather. It's rained 2 days in a row. I need to go to therapy for this.
Oh my God,
So,
it's 50 degrees. It's cold outside,
we're based. I was talking to a couple of my friends out in Kansas City. It was when the Niners were playing the Packers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was raining at the game.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't watch the game, but I saw like a rerun of it. But I thought it was an old game because they were playing and there was nobody in the stands. I'm like, wait, was this like a preseason game or like what game is this? Come find out it was the game that they're, like I think it was a playoff game. I'm all, yep, that's Californians right there. The Niner fans are like, it's raining. Yeah, we're not going. But then you go to like Kansas City or the Buffalo, they'll sit out there and the fridge is cold.
Yeah.
Like suck it up and stuff. They're like, well, we don't do that here in California. We're sensitive.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
So what else have you been doing?
I think you mentioned snowboarding. So I'm a big snowboarder, not big snowboarder, but I love snowboarding. And so every chance I get to go up to Tahoe or any mountain that has snow, I try to go. So that's been taking up a lot of my weekends and stuff, which I have no complaints about. So I'm actually going to Tahoe this weekend, and then in a couple weeks I'll be in Denver, and hitting, or in Colorado and going out to Vail and Beaver Creek. So
awesome. Yeah, that's great. Well, where could the audience find you?
I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Instagram, it's _Ashflow. So it's like cash flow without the C. And so
yeah, I like it. It's a clever name.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. And then you can find my LinkedIn and my Facebook on my Instagram too. So
cool. We'll put it in the show notes too.
Awesome.
Yeah. It's been great chatting with you. I'm glad we got to catch up. I know I think I must have DM'd you on Instagram to get you on. I think I saw some, you know what I think I saw? I think I saw one of your stories or maybe one of your posts about DJing.
Okay.
And I'm like, oh, let's get Ashley on the podcast. Like it just jogged my memory. I was like, yeah, let's talk to her, because I don't think I had the last time that when we met, I didn't have a podcast going.
Yeah.
I think we're only like 16 episodes in at this point.
Oh, awesome. So. Okay. I've listened to a couple of your episodes and I think they're good. I mean, I love the casual kind of, no agenda. Let's just talk and flow and stuff.
Yeah.
So
I think it's kind of just let it go the way it's going to go. But it's funny how many people really want to have some type of like structure of like, okay, what are you going to be asking me?
Right.
Like, no, we're going to let it go the way it goes. And I think that usually makes it a little bit more intriguing. So I appreciate you jumping on. And yeah, I have to, at some point, where can I find the whole, your meetups? Where do you post about those?
So it's on my Instagram too. So if you go,
okay.
I usually post it there. We also have our website, Invest Capital. So nvstcapital.com. So all of our events and stuff are posted there. So that's the company I have with 3 other business partners. So
what I know, one thing I didn't ask is what type of music are you DJing? Are you into hip hop? What are you doing?
Mostly hip hop.
Okay.
So I would say open format. So I kind of throw in different things here and there. And you talked about earlier just kind of digging for music, and that's something I love to do. So if I'm bored or something like that, I'm digging for new music. And so
really?
I think there's like a death to the genres where it's like, I don't care what genre it is. I just if it sounds cool, I'll play it, kind of thing. So yeah.
That is the absolute great approach to doing it, because it's your ear picking it up. It's your job after that to convey it onto the dance floor and let people go like, what?
Yeah.
It's always like that random stuff too that people would never catch. You're just like, you put it out there and like, is that really what you're playing?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, thanks again. I really appreciate it. I'm glad we were able to get this on, and I'm glad I didn't try to reschedule you because I was fear of going to be coughing and being sick on this. But so I'm glad that we were able to connect, and yeah, we'll chat down the road. I
Yeah.
appreciate you jumping on.
Are you headed to any conferences this year?
Yeah, we're going to do Jesse Vasquez's STR.
Yeah.
Yeah. The midterm
Nice.
conference. We're going to do that. I think we're going to do another one and trying to put together some type of mastermind at our cabin out in the Smokies.
Nice.
For like a yearly thing.
Okay.
Maybe on the slow season, kind of get some people together, just go out there and hang out, maybe, 14, 15 people. But so far only just Jesse's is on the calendar. What about you?
I am going to, so Old Capitol has a conference every year, towards the end of the year, and that's for multifamily. So I'll obviously be there. And then I'm going to, it's called SARECon. So it's a community called Subtle Asian Real Estate. It's a community of Asians, I guess,
Cool.
primarily Asians.
Cool.
And so they have a conference every year. So I'll be there. And then I'll probably be at Best Ever conference, in April. And that's also
Nice.
in the multifamily space. So
yeah, conferences are fun. That's where hey, look, I think conferences, it's great. You go there and you can, go learn some cool stuff. But I think really the magic is just meeting people randomly, walking down the street or just going to lunch.
That's the best part.
I don't know.
That's the best part.
I think it is. It is the best part. Yeah. All right. Well, that's good. That's exactly how we're going to lead this because that's how I met you.
Yeah.
And I think that's the best part of this whole scenario, especially going to those conferences.
Yeah.
But you have a great day.
Thank you, Steven.
Keep rocking the turntables. We'll talk again. All right.
Okay. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you for tuning into our show, where we hope you found inspiration and gained valuable insights. If you enjoyed this conversation and want to stay updated on our latest episodes, be sure to subscribe to our podcast and share it with others who might benefit from it. We appreciate your support and look forward to bringing you more candid conversations and breakthrough moments in the future. Until next time, take care and keep exploring new ideas and strategies.